Oh, hi. I'm so glad you decided to join me on this adventure. I'm Sandy Spurgeon McDaniel, and I have something you don't have. It's called experience. Experience is an incredible thing, and you'll begin to realize that as you get older. You can't go to Target and buy $100 worth of experience. You got to do the laps. And as of this taping, I've done 67 laps. So I've been around the block a few more times than you have. Never mind, I've had 48 years of training, research, experience in child development. So what I have is a grand sharing for you. I invite you to take what works for you, embrace it, cherish it, and use it. And with the breath of kindness, blow the rest away. Today I'm talking about my discipline system. In order to raise a reliable, respectful, responsible, resilient, loving child, you must teach them to respect boundaries and to respect power. In order to do that, you have to have boundaries and consequences that are fair in order to teach a child how to use power. Angie and Josh were sitting in church. Angie was 7, Josh is 5. And Josh was yapping away, yapping away. So his sister, tired of his yapping, said, "You're not supposed to talk in church." And Josh, being 5, said, "Who's going to stop me?" Angie leaned forward, pointed to the guys in the back of the room, and he said, "Have you seen those guys? They're hushers." Today's child is more difficult than any generation prior to this in terms of discipline. Some of that has to do with the media effect. Some of it has to do with generational breakdowns. If your mom didn't know and dad didn't know how to discipline, then you don't know how to discipline either. There are a lot of reasons which we'll talk about in further tapes. But this is the most difficult generation to discipline. My mother's generation, my mother being 91, raised children based on fear, and they took their love away. And our generation pretty much enhanced the field of psychology and psychiatry as a result of that. For one reason, and this is my extreme belief, you cannot raise children in fear and have a productive, successful human being. So my whole discipline system is all about changing that. Not making it wrong, not judging it, but changing it. You cannot raise a child in fear. So what's the difference between punishment and a consequence? I believe a punishment is an angry adult who is trying to get even with a child for doing something wrong. The consequence is the logical outcome of a choice. Consequences need to be consistent and fair in order to teach the lesson at hand, which is to change a behavior. So, let's get into it. The whole game, I believe, is about power. From the time a little child is a baby, they begin to realize they have something. They can't think and reason, so they can't go, "Oh gosh, I have power, I'm going to use it." They can't do that. But they start to wield it, to check it out, to see what it is they can do and can't do. Suddenly a baby decides it can have room service in the middle of the night at the same hour, 2 o'clock every night. A child calls for the dog dish and starts eating the dog food. They start checking out power from a very, very, very early age. Whenever a child pushes a boundary, challenges you, they're only asking 2 questions. The first question is this how I use power? And the second question is, do you mean it? Anytime a child does something naughty, they're asking a question. Is this how I use power? And do you mean it? If the answer is yes to is this how I use power, you leave it alone. If it's no, you need a consequence to teach that child to change the behavior. Starting today, I want you to think of yourself as Officer Clancy. If you go out of wherever you are and you speed down the road, and Officer Clancy nails you, he doesn't come up to the window and chew you up, up one side, down the other. He doesn't do that. He doesn't look in the window and go, "How long have you been driving?" Do you think it would be safe? What do you think it'd be like if everybody drove up all that stuff, blah, 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 stuff that we do with kids? He looks in and he says, may I have your driver's license and your registration, please? He writes you a consequence for your choice, hands you the consequence, and then is nice to you. Drive carefully, ma'am. Should you choose the following week to drive down the road again in speed, and Officer Clancy nails you again, he doesn't come up, look in the window and go, what are you, brain dead? I gave you a ticket last week. Aren't you ever going to learn this lesson? The reason you're laughing is because this is what we do to children. He looks in the car. He says, may I have your license and your registration, please? He writes you a consequence. He hands you the consequence. And then he's nice to you again. Drive carefully, sir. Officer Clancy is your role model because when it costs too much, you will change your behavior. And that's the bottom line of discipline. When it costs too much, a child will change his or her behavior. Not because they're afraid of Officer Clancy, you, but because they believe that Officer Clancy, you, will do your job. Officer Clancy is somebody I want to keep in your mind. I am going to become Officer Clancy. I'm going to give consequences, and I'm not going to go on this tirade that comes with parents who are out of control. Children hate to be bored. They detest being bored. They can't stand being bored. They hate to be bored. I'm not trying to be boring. I'm trying to make a point. Boredom is your best friend as a parent. Your best friend as a parent. Let me show you how it works. In my book, Recipes from Parenting, there are lots and lots of examples on how to use boredom. Let me teach you a couple. Fighting in the car. Look at this from a power standpoint of view. You're in the front driving the car. They're behind you. You see there could be a power play here? They start to kick each other or punch each other. So what you do is you try to control them with your voice. Stop it! I told you to stop it! Are you listening to me? You'd better stop it. You notice how when we think that we want them to know that we mean it, we get louder and more intense? Haven't you ever driven down the road and you looked in a van and you see the driver, the mother or the father, screaming and yelling, and you can see the kids in the back. They're basically going, because what they're saying is, you can't stop us. You're driving the car. So it's ridiculous to scream and yell at them. Instead, pull over the car to the side of the road. Turn off the ignition and the radio. Instead of just sitting there, because that could be a power play, also they could make you wait, look out the window for your next car. Or look out the window and notice that there is a breeze that's blowing in the trees. You haven't had time to notice that since your children were born. The breeze still blows in the trees. Look out the window. At some point, one of the children will say, in my case, Mom, all I need to do is say yes. But if I were my mother, because we raised children in a different way in that generation, she would say, what? Because she'd want us to know that she was angry because we forced her to stop the car. I'm not angry. It's a fair question. Is this how I use power? Mom? Yes. Mom, how come you stopped the car? My mother would be over the seat like a cobra. What do you think? You think I can drive a car while children are fighting? It would be terrifying. You don't need to terrify children to get them to mind. Mom, how come you stopped the car? It isn't safe for me to drive while children are fighting. Now, go back to the breeze. What do I want? A plan or a promise? When the kids say, Mom, we promise, you say, okay, I'm driving the car again. But if I need to stop, I'll have to stop for a longer time. Now, you'll need to do this whole thing. Pull over, stop the car. They ask the question, the whole thing, 2 times. Why? Because the first question is this how I use power? The second question is, do you mean it? They will check to see if you'll do it again. After that, it becomes really easy. They start something in the back, you say, oh, do we need to stop the car? And you turn the wheel so the car kind of goes like this. They'll go, no, 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 hey, I love my brother. Because they don't want you to pull over the car, stop and do that again, because it's boring. Children hate to be bored. Boredom is your absolute best friend. Let's look at boredom in another arena. Let's say your child comes in from outside and you ask them to do something and they talk to you like you're something the cat dragged in. You know, that attitude, talking down to you stuff, where you just want to smack them, okay? Well, instead of smacking them, because that's not in my program, all right, then what we're going to do is this. You look at the child and you say, 2 choices. I like 2 choices because it says, I'm done. Don't mess with me. 2 choices, instant replay or penalty box. And I'll explain what penalty box is as we get into this. But instant replay is do that whole thing all over again. Say what you just said all over again without the attitude. If you choose not to do that, there is a consequence. Instant replay. Again, there are lots of ways to use boredom in my book, Recipes from Parenting, which you can find on parentingsos.com. The point of discipline is to get a child to change a behavior. It's to teach a child to respect boundaries and to respect power. Ultimately, it will create your home as a safe place for your children to be, in which fun and love and joy prevail. Discipline is so important to children. Let's learn my system. 2 rules. I don't like to have rules, and I don't like to have to think of them. So I only have 2. The first one is you sit if you hit. The second one is we are kind to each other. The you sit if you hit rule is designed for little boys predominantly. Little boys have gladiator genes. Genes, I'm not talking about blue jeans. They have gladiator genes. It's inside of them. If you could find 2 boys, I don't know where you'd find them, who had never seen a fight, and you put them in a room with 2 sticks, sooner or later, they would pick up the 2 sticks, start smacking them together, and beat the snot out of each other and call it fun. Gladiators. It's inside of them. They can't stop it. Well, I didn't want to stop it. But what I was looking at when I raised 2 boys, I raised my son Scott and borrowed son Doug, who joined us in 6th grade. What I was looking at with Doug and Scott, because they were so big, 6'5" and 6'3", was who are they going to be down the line? How are they going to turn out? And what I was looking at the time as a researcher was the divorce rate. And the divorce rate was escalating, getting bigger and bigger in that time. And so what I said to myself was, what's needed in order for a relationship to be successful? The number 1 factor, I believe, is communication. If people communicate with each other, they build bridges between each other instead of walls. And so what I was looking for with my boys was, how can I teach them to communicate? And it became obvious that I needed to take the gladiator and put it outside. You can go outside, you can beat the snot out of each other. I saw my 2 boys, when they were in their teens, stand 10 feet apart, throwing baseballs at each other, pelting each other, hurting each other, going, ooh, ah, ah, getting red in spots where they were hitting each other, and they called it fun. I didn't say a word. They could be gladiators outside. But inside, you sit if you hit. No hitting, no punching, tripping, no budging, no butting, no roughhousing inside. And that's a hard one for the dads, because there's no such thing as a little roughhousing. So you sit if you hit is one of my rules. The second one is we are kind to each other. Wouldn't it be a better world if we were all kind to each other? If you want to raise loving children, the bridge to being a loving person is to be kind. If you teach your children to be kind and not to hit to solve problems, then what you do is you take the chaos out of your house. Just like a vacuum cleaner, you go in and you suck out the anger, you suck out the unkindness, you suck out the meanness, you suck out the place where people harm each other by what they say or what they do. And what's left is love, joy, and I forgot one in the time I said it before, fun. I wish your family could have as much fun as my children and I had. Fun! Because we weren't harming each other along the way. So, if you break a rule, you need a consequence. The first consequence is called the penalty box. My son Scott named the penalty box. I was going to call it the remembering chair or something cuter. And he said, no. The gladiators won't get it. How about hockey? Or if you break a rule, you go to a place, you have to be quiet. When it's over, you're back in the game and nobody lectures you at the moment, at least. But nobody chews you out, okay? So, penalty box. For hitting, disrespect, or unkind behavior. Any behavior you want to stop immediately, you use the penalty box. The penalty box is feedback that a certain behavior is not acceptable. From 2.5 or 3, depending on the maturity of your child, this is the way you use the penalty box. Where is it? It can be a chair, a carpet square. One lady who has 5 kids uses small kid hula hoops, and she has them everywhere. She has them in the car, upstairs, downstairs, in the backyard, because she has so many kids. My personal favorite is the carpet square with some sticky stuff on the back, because the gladiators can pretty much do a lot of things to a chair. They can make it flip, they can roll out of it, they can slide out of it, they can hang off of it. There's not a whole lot you can do to a carpet square that has some stick on it. If you don't put stick on it, they push their hand off the wall and slide it across the room on the penalty box. All right, so I'm just showing you things that people have learned over the years that we've had this system. So where is it? Is to the degree it is boring, will the child not want to be there? So you would have it be on the stairs. You could have it be in the laundry room. You could have a chair in the laundry room where the washing machine and dryer are. You could have it in the formal dining room. What's happening in the formal dining room if you're not eating there? Nothing. To the degree it is boring, will a child not want to be there? The rules for sitting in the penalty box are simple. You have to be quiet. You can't talk. You can't scream. You can't get out. If you talk, scream, or get out, your time starts over. So what? You say to the child, this is your playtime. This is your time. You want to spend it sitting there trying to figure out if I mean it or not? Go for it. Otherwise, sit and be quiet for as many minutes as you are old, and it's over. And that's the amount of time that the child's in the penalty box. So a 4-year-old is in for 4 minutes, a 9-year-old's in for 9 minutes, a 12-year-old's in for 12 minutes, a 16-year-old's in for 16 minutes. For as many minutes as you are old, you sit in the penalty box. So let me demonstrate. Let's say your name is Gail. So I would look at you and I would say, and you just hit your sister. Gail, you're in the penalty box. So you go over and you sit on the chair or the carpet square. First thing I need to do is tell you why you're there. Gail, did you notice I just touched my chin? I did it for a reason. Makes you look at my mouth. Gail, hitting your sister is not acceptable. I want you to use the words acceptable, not acceptable. Unacceptable, not acceptable. Not good, bad, right, or wrong. You can use good or bad with the word choice. Good choice, bad choice. But children believe that good and bad are attached to good person or bad person. A bad choice doesn't make a bad person. It's just a bad choice. Acceptable and not acceptable are clean. My mother's generation did, I'm so disappointed in you. I'm so disgusted. All that stuff, which is emotional blackmail. It doesn't work. Keep it clean. Hitting your sister is not acceptable. It's unacceptable to hit your sister. You will sit here for, and I'll make Gail 4 minutes. Here are the rules. Can't talk, can't scream, can't get out. Gail, if you choose to talk, scream, or get out, your time starts over. Okay? Here we go. Set the timer. You want to have one of those little timers. You put it down. Right. Chances are really good your child's going to mess with you the first time. You know, you set it, you walk away, and they say, is my time up yet? So you turn and you go back and you stop the timer and you say, look, it was almost over. Ding! Ah! Just be quiet and it's over. Listen to me. Here we go. And you turn it again. Now, if they mess with you again, don't do the whole part where you talk about it again. Children can get you to lecture as a way of just keeping you strung in the game, okay? Instead, if they do something, if Gail does something again, what I'm going to do is give her the look. You have to learn the look. I taught elementary school. I had 38 fourth graders. You got to learn the look. That's the look, okay? So she does something again. She says something again. So I go, walk over, pick up the timer, look at her, time it, turn it back, put it down. And I will do that as many times as I need to do it until she gets it into her head that I'm not going to give up. The only question the child is asking if they keep it going is, do you mean it? If you mean it, they will stop. Now, the child knows what the penalty box is because they have experienced it. Let's say a child, after they know what it is, refuses to go to the penalty box. Gail hits her sister, and I say, Gail, go to the penalty box. She says, no. Right? Gail, if you walk to the penalty box, it's 4 minutes. If I need to force you to go, and I will. Did you notice I paused there and dropped my voice and got a little more intense with my look, but I didn't yell? I'll do it again. If I need to force you to go, and I will, then your time doubles. So you'll be sitting quietly for 8 minutes. That's a long time. And there will be a consequence on top of that. Choose. If Gail repeats the same behavior in the same day, she hits her sister and she goes to the penalty box and she serves her time, but then within an hour or two, she hits her sister again, well, obviously it didn't cost enough for her to learn the lesson. So then I would put her in the penalty box and double the lesson, double the time, okay? And then if in the same day she hits her sister again, I would double that time. If she's 4 minutes the first time, 8 minutes the second time, 16 minutes the next time. It seems a little harsh, doesn't it? We had a boy, watch the power in this one, walk over, hit his sister, smile at his mother, and go and sit in the penalty box. I got the call, okay, wizard, what do you do with this one? I went right back to Officer Clancy. Didn't cost enough. And so we learned to double it, and double it again. We've never had a child go past the third double so far, because at that point it's too long to sit, and they learn the lesson. You need to have the same rules that you have at home when you're out and about. So my mother with 5 kids, little kids too, 5 little kids, yikes. She said to me, I can't remember who did what. Penny, nickel, dime, quarter, foreign coin. She has a little pouch. And when she's in the car, she has a glass in the car. Why a glass? Because if she puts coins in the glass, it goes clink, clink. And with 5 kids, it gets kind of noisy in the car. So clink, clink, and everybody will get quiet, suddenly quiet. And what they'll do is they'll look to see who got busted. So it's a good noise control. But she has, if she's in the store, she'll just take the coin and put it in her pocket. And then when she gets back in the car, she drops them in the glass. When she gets home, pours the glass out into her hand. You know what? Matt, Elizabeth, and John, you're in the penalty box. Elizabeth, you're in for twice as long because I have 2 dimes. They're responsible for their choices out and about. And the penalty box is a great reminder of what's appropriate and what is not appropriate in terms of behavior. For hitting, disrespect, or unkind behavior, you're going to use the penalty box. From 18 months to 2.5 or 3 years old, whatever you decide the child is mature enough to be quiet in the penalty box, you can put a child in the penalty box to give them feedback that a behavior is inappropriate. But you need to put them into a contained area or a contained space, like a high chair, a playpen, a pack and play. You can even use a child's crib to put a child in to give them feedback that a certain behavior is not appropriate. You'll read some places that you shouldn't use your bedroom, a child's bedroom, for a punishment, and I agree with that, but this isn't a punishment. It's a consequence. So you can have the penalty box be that a child sits on top of their bed, or that a child is put in a crib, and that's appropriate to this system. In a contained place, because they won't sit and be still. The other thing is they don't have to be quiet. They're too little. So from 18 months until 2.5 or 3, whenever you start the other penalty box, they are in a contained place and they don't have to be quiet. Some examples of using the penalty box. A teenager is disrespectful, comes in and you tell them they can't do something and they say, "I hate you." And you say, penalty box, right now. Because being disrespectful is not on the list. A child trips another sibling who's walking through the room. The child who did the tripping goes to the penalty box. One child says something unkind to another child, like you're lame or you're stupid or you look ugly, or, one of those things that kids do. Penalty box. Sometimes the kids will say, that's just what kids do. They just are mean to each other. And my answer to that would be, not in our home. It isn't going to happen. I can't make you like your brother and sister, and I will make you be kind. The penalty box is so amazing because not only do the kids get it in terms of if you do this, then this happens, but they get the idea that it's about choices. When my grandson Nicholas was 3 years old, we were having lunch one day, and he suddenly got down out of his booster chair, and he took their black French bulldog, and he took her over to the door and put her outside and came back and got it back up in his booster chair. And I said to him, "Nicholas, how come you just put Ginger outside?" And he looked at me, he looked at the door, and then he looked at me and he said, "She was making a bad choice." I leaned down and I looked over the side, and Jack was down here, their beige French bulldog. And I said, "Well, how come you didn't put Jack outside?" He leaned over, just like a kid does, looked at Jack, looked back at me, and he said, "She didn't make a bad choice." He's 3. If at 3, children understand that it's about choices. When you make a good choice, nothing bad happens, no consequence. When you don't, then there's a consequence. Then the whole discipline game is a whole different venue. Children do not like the penalty box, but they do not resent it. The cancer in anger is resentment. If children mind and yet they resent it, then there's going to be another problem comes up down the way. Children do not resent the penalty box. And if a child says to you, "You're mean," because you put them in the penalty box, you look right at the child and you say, "I'm the rule maker, I'm the rule keeper. You chose to break the rule. This is about you. It's not about me, bud." Hitting, disrespect, unkindness. A child goes to the penalty box. If you want to learn more about the penalty box, you go to parentingsos.com and order my book, Don't Feed the Dragon.